Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindell. I'm a grad student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Dr. Kimberly Plomp. I am a bioarchaeologist. I study human health and disease and evolution.
And I'm Dr. Ross Barnett, working on paleogenetics, mostly of extinct cats.
And this episode is going to be coming out on October 1st, which means we get to do 3 scary movies for Halloween season this year. Because arbitrarily that starts on October 1st, I guess. Yep. That's what we decided.
In the Philippines, Christmas starts September 1st.
Yeah. There's already Christmas stuff in the stores out here, too.
Yeah, same here.
So for our first October Halloween season movie, we're doing Sabretooth from 2002. This is a made-for-TV Sci-Fi Channel movie. We've done a few of those, I think. They always turn out great. Who wants to summarize this one?
I can.
This one's for Ross.
Right.
Yeah, this one's for you, Ross. I chose this specifically for you, so be happy about it.
You'll get yours, Josh, don't worry. So, Sabretooth. It's got John Rhys-Davies in it, who you'll know as Salah from Indiana Jones, and Gimli from Lord of the Rings. And he's pretty much the only person that you'll recognize in this film. But it starts with a janitor walking through a stereotypical laboratory. You've got various beakers full of colored liquids, including like magenta and luminous green. And interestingly, on one of the benches, there is obviously a saber-tooth skull. But the janitor comes in, and he is obviously going to be cleaning up around this lab, despite the fact that there's kind of open beakers of God knows what everywhere. It's a health and safety nightmare.
He even sniffs one.
But he goes to this room at the back of the lab and presses a button, which is supposed to kind of activate a gate, which will stop something, I wonder what, from getting out into its kind of cell area. But he's not paying attention because he's a rubbish janitor, and he doesn't see that the gate doesn't properly close, and he just walks into the room, which has the flimsiest of flimsy doors to get into the room. It looks like it's not even got a mortise lock. It's just like a Yale lock. And he goes in there, and unfortunately it locks behind him. And so he gets in there, and obviously he gets instantly devoured by the saber-tooth that's in there. And there's some very dramatic moments of him being kind of gored to death up against this super flimsy door, which, it needs like a solid metal gate to keep it in its little cubby hole. But the door looks like something you picked up from the bargain range of B&Q. It's like ludicrous. Anyway, he's dead. He's very, very dead. And then it cuts away from this genetics lab to some random karate. There's some campers at a campsite just doing karate. And these guys are kind of city kids that are wanting to take underprivileged kids into nature. That's their whole thing. And they're all kind of just really forgettable, no characters. There's a blonde. There's a hottie.
There are only blonde women in this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's the alpha blonde.
Yes.
And then there's the beta blonde who has on a t-shirt that says hottie. There's the douchebag who's like a brooding kind of jock sort of guy who does the karate with his mate, who's the kind of streetwise kind of wisecracking guy. And then it cuts away from them to a truck driver who's obviously got the saber-tooth in the back of his truck in another flimsy container. He stopped at a gas station, a very redneck gas station, as you'd expect in a film like this. And he fills up with gas, and instantly he's going to die. I don't think they even bother giving him a name. He's just a truck driver. And then it cuts back again to the campers, and now the final member of the camping group turns up late. He's called Jason. He's asthmatic because he's always puffing away on an inhaler. He's got super 90s style fashion, including like big jeans and a crappy haircut. And so that's it. That's the 5 campers. Cuts away again. You have the truck driver he wanted to get a cup of coffee at the redneck garage. They didn't have any coffee. He didn't have his coffee, so of course he's going to fall asleep while he's driving and crash his truck with the Sabretooth in it. And it gets out, and he's dead. So now the Sabretooth is on the loose in the woods, and that's bad. Then we finally meet Jonathan Rhys-Davies, who is some kind of, I guess, Elon Musk style, more money than sense kind of angel investor. We meet the total bitch, whose name I think is Catherine, who, I mean, it's just, this is the quality of the writing in this film. This is where you get the big info dump, the exposition. Why the fuck have they been making Sabretooths out of ancient DNA? And it's because they can use that somehow to make organs for people to transplant. That's it. You want some kind of explanation? That's it. That's all you're getting. Somehow,
Ross, are you telling me as a big cat geneticist working on paleo cat DNA, you weren't trying to do that to grow human organs? Isn't that the whole point?
No. No. But in this film, that's how they do stuff, I guess. So that is the explanation. We need to have resurrected Sabretooth so that we can transplant organs into people. It makes as much sense as anything in this film. And for some reason, Jonathan Rhys-Davies and this total cow are in a log cabin. They're discussing how great it is. They're waiting for the truck driver to bring the Sabretooth to the log cabin for reasons that are never explained and are fairly opaque. But yeah, they're all kind of they're high on their success. Jonathan Rhys-Davies is thinking he's going to be rich and make billions from all these cloned organs they're going to make. The total cow, Catherine, is excited that she's going to get the Nobel Prize for this. Okay. And they're waiting for the truck driver to turn up, but bad news, he's been eaten by the Sabretooth, which is now loose. We also meet another person whose name I forgot. I should mention that I watched this film at 1.25 speed because there is no way I was going to waste any more of my life than absolutely necessary watching it.
I did too.
But another person turns up. I think she's meant to be a scientist. She says that her thesis is on mastodon diet. Why on earth she's involved in this, I don't know. But she does have a cool T-shirt on which says "Extinction sucks." I did like that. That T-shirt was good. And then we cut away from this little kind of log cabin info dump to two random people, how to put it politely, shagging, essentially, in the middle of the forest somewhere.
In their home.
And obviously, these guys are going to die as well. I mean, you're having sex in a horror film, you're going to die. That's the rules. We know it, they don't know it. But the girl gets up. I don't know why, but she does. And then she realizes her cat is missing. So she goes out wearing nothing but a nightshirt to look for her cat, because it's an inside cat. And unfortunately, she stumbles across the Sabretooth, which eats her, of course. And then the guy, wondering where his girlfriend's got to, gets up, and he also gets eaten. So that's it. It's killed the janitor, the truck driver, and these two randoms. So that's 4 people already, and we're only about 20 minutes in. So that's a pretty good kill rate so far. And then the scientists, in the loosest sense, the scientists in this film discover that the truck driver's crashed. They go and check it out. They see that the Sabretooth is missing. Jonathan Rhys-Davies happens to know a tracker, which is very handy for for the plot. So they're going to go and find the tracker, just tell him it's a lion, and get him to track it down, because obviously this Sabretooth is super important. They've only made one of them. They couldn't possibly make another one. And then we get more of the campers hiking. We've got Leon, who's the kind of wisecracking camper. He's dicking around on a cliff, and he hears the Sabretooth, so that's great. So obviously it's setting up that the Sabretooth's going to kind of track the campers and eat them one by one, which is, of course, what happens. Jonathan Rhys-Davies and Catherine and the tracker, they find the cabin that the couple were in, finds the guy's body. Obviously, that's bad news. Now they know that the Sabretooth killed 3 people at least. They kind of explore a little bit, and the bad bitch, Catherine, she finds the half-eaten woman from the cabin who's just in the bushes saying, "Help me." And she doesn't help her at all. She just kind of ignores this poor kind of half-mauled woman and just like, "Nah, I ain't helping you," and kind of doesn't tell anyone that she's seen them, and just buggers off. Then, I mean, the whole film is kind of cutting between the trackers and the scientists and the campers. There's some nice kind of classic kind of camping scenes where they're all sitting around the fire playing Truth or Dare. There's quite a good line where I can't remember who it is that says it, but speaking to Lola, I think, who's the beta blonde, they're playing Truth or Dare, and someone asks her, "Have you ever slept with a girl?" And then she replies to the guy, "No, have you?" Which is quite a good line, I thought. That's kind of harks back to Aliens with Vasquez being asked if she's ever been mistaken for a man, which is also a top quality line. Anyway, so there's like it basically kind of plays out like this for ages. There's the campers kind of go for ill-advised walks. Lola and the douchebag, they kind of almost start to get together, but the douchebag has a thing for the alpha blonde. Then the campers find a big track, which I will come back to later on because this was just horrible. But they find a track, so they know there's something out there. They've heard it. They find a cave when they're out walking. They go in, of course, because why wouldn't you go into a cave in the middle of nowhere when you heard like Sabretooth growls all around? They find a puma in the cave. It doesn't do anything to them. Blah, blah, blah. It gets to dark. Jason, the nerdy 90s kid, he's going out for a dump. He takes toilet roll with him. So, of course, he's going to get eaten, which he does. There's the classic kind of schlocky horror movie thing of like the kind of Scream Queens just like running away and then tripping over just nothing until he gets eaten. He loses his glasses like Velma and Scooby-Doo, and that helps him get eaten as well. Yeah, and then you have kind of bad decision after bad decision. Some of the campers have been killed, so they decide to split up to look for him. They find the toilet paper that's been left. They find the tracker, the one that's been hired by John Rhys-Davies and his pals. They find Jason's body. He's been cut up pretty bad. At this point, Catherine decides to tell them that she found the half-dead woman, which is great. There's more chasing. So the campers that have been split up, they get chased up the mountain. Sadly, Lola, the beta blonde, she gets eaten by the Sabretooth. It gets her head in its jaws and takes her away. There's a nice line from Leon when the douchebag comes back to the other campers and says that he saw a Sabretooth tiger. Leon goes, "You talking crazy, man? They extinct." Which is true. But they've got the tracker on their side now, so they're going to go and hunt the Sabretooth. And yeah, it's basically they all kind of meet up. Sabretooth eats Jonathan Rhys-Davies. The tracker tries to shoot it. It all goes wrong. They send the campers to hide in a mine while they track the Sabretooth. It gets away. It finds them at the mine. It chases them into the mine. Casey, who's the alpha blonde, and the douchebag, who I think is called Trent. Of course he is. Trent is a proper douchebag name. They hide in the mine and get the Sabretooth chases them in, but they manage to hide in a kind of crevice that it can't get to. Casey climbs out of a convenient hole in the roof, leaving Trent behind. She gets the tracker. They've lost their tranquilizer gun, but they've got like a tranquilizer stick, which they use to sort of jab the Sabretooth. And while it's kind of tranked, Trent escapes out of the cave. But of course, it's not tranquilized for long, and it comes out and chases after them again. Catherine, the bad bitch, and Trent and Casey leave the tracker guy to shoot the Sabretooth as it comes out of the cave when the tracks have worn off. But Catherine, being the total badass that she is, has given him a gun with no bullets. And so as the Sabretooth's coming out towards him, he tries to shoot it, and the gun just clicks. So that was a pretty terrible thing to do.
Yep.
But she doesn't care. She's like a sort of stone cold psychopath, despite the fact that I think it's kind of explained that they were in a relationship at some point, but she has no qualms about letting him get eaten by her pet Sabretooth. Anyway, yeah, so they're basically being chased by the Sabretooth now. There's only 4 survivors: Casey, Trent, Catherine, and the tracker. There's like a standoff at the top of a mountain, which has a sheer cliff drop at one side, so they're trapped. Catherine still doesn't want anyone to shoot the Sabretooth, and pulls a gun on them to stop that. The Sabretooth turns up, eats Catherine, which is great. And then they've got some pointy sticks, which is all you need. While the Sabretooth is attacking them, they kind of very lamely kind of jab at it with the pointy sticks. And it jumps at them, jumps at the tracker while he's holding a spear and gets impaled on the spear. And it's exactly the same. I don't know if this is deliberate or not, but exactly the same as the way the Sabretooth dies in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, where the Sabretooth in that film is fighting a troglodyte underground, and it jumps and gets impaled on a spear. Exactly the same way. Anyway, so that's it. The Sabretooth's dead. There's only 3 survivors. Trent and Casey, the Alpha Blonde, get back together. Has absolutely no emotional depth to it at all, but that's it. And then they all head off the mountain together to go and do something more relaxing, like bungee jumping. And that's it. It's it's not a bad film. It's a terrible film. But it's so terrible that it has almost no redeeming features, I would say.
It's so of its time too, right? Like,
oh yeah, it's so late 90s.
It was 2002, which is the year I graduated. And I just
2002.
like it looked like all the popular girls in my school, and just like it was so
the Alpha Blondes.
Yeah.
Lola's wearing one of those ball-bearing chain necklaces, which is exactly what I was wearing in 2002.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm sure it looked better on you, Josh, than it did on her.
I don't know. She was what did her shirt say? Certified
Hottie.
hottie or something like that.
Hopefully we don't have any Trents listening.
She was actually the better actress. She was a much better actress than the main character, Casey.
Yeah.
I thought.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this film.
So I don't have a lot of notes. This film didn't really give us a lot to go on. It's got like maybe 1 or 2 lines of exposition that we're going to build a whole podcast episode on. Maybe we can start with the lab that you've already pointed out. How accurate is this genetics lab? So the door to it says genetics lab. Yeah,
quite often genetics labs will say that on the door.
Yeah.
Good start.
It's it's a decent size, but you can't have open beakers of just glow in the dark stuff everywhere. With at least it should be in a fume hood.
And the janitor,
not that we tend to use
he
much.
picked it up and he sniffed it, like the green goop in it. Like that's not smart.
that janitor, he was going to die one way or another. It was either going to be inhaling poisonous fumes or Sabretooth, but he was definitely on his way out. But the space was good, but they didn't actually have anything genetic. They didn't have a PCR machine. They didn't have any fume hoods. They didn't have any lab coats.
It looked like a high school science lab, right?
Yeah.
It probably was a high school lab. I wrote it down. Here's everything that's in the lab in order as you see it. So you open the door. The first thing you see is a paper Halloween skeleton hanging on the wall.
That's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
That tracks for me, right?
Yeah.
Definitely I've never been to a genetics lab, but we always hang stuff like that. Halloween this time of year is great for going to the stores and finding cool skeletons just for personal use. The next thing we see, it's blurry in the background, but I'm pretty sure that the entire wall is covered by a periodic table. Is that really important for your genetics work?
Not really. No. I mean, definitely lots of labs I've worked in have art on the walls of the lab. Tends not to be periodic table, but pictures of the species that they're studying, or like a geological timescale. When I've worked in kind of paleo labs, that's been quite useful. But yeah, periodic table, not too out of place, but not super useful either.
And then, of course, there's all these different rainbow-colored liquids bubbling in all these beakers. What color are the liquids you usually have in beakers? Probably clear.
Yeah, absolutely clear. I mean, in a kind of modern genetics lab, the only kind of beakers of stuff are going to be clear. You'll have the only thing bubbling might be your agarose when you're boiling it to make your agarose gels.
But somebody would be watching it, right? It wouldn't be just bubbling away.
Yeah, you wouldn't be watching it.
You don't let it run overnight?
No. Nothing colored. Everything's just almost indistinguishable from water, which is no fun.
So then there's the Sabretooth skull sitting there. I suppose at some point you gotta extract the DNA from it, so you must have some actual bones somewhere at some point, right?
Yeah, and that's not at all a contamination risk having your main skull just sitting in the lab. It's a Smilodon skull. It's very obviously a Smilodon skull, quite a decent replica of the kind that you can buy. But yeah, subtlety wasn't this film's strong point, I don't think.
Yeah. She said a species name, but I didn't recognize it. Which one did she say?
I think it was Smilodon fatalis.
Fatalis.
I think that's what she says, which would be the correct North American species.
A couple other things they had in this genetics lab were a couple of microscopes. They looked very much like the kind you'd see in a high school lab. We just got a new microscope installed in our archaeology lab for looking, I think... what do they want that one for looking at? I think they want it for looking at tooth cross sections or starches. I can't remember which one. But these microscopes today, like this is all automatic. You don't touch the microscope for barely anything. It's hooked up to a computer, so you're doing everything with the mouse or keyboard. So I imagine your genetics microscopes, if you're using microscopes for genetics.
No. I mean, what are you going to see? You're not going to see DNA down the
you're going to look at the DNA to read it, right? You're gonna zoom in on the chromosome and read the genetic code,
one letter at a time.
And they had a balance scale.
Yeah, now that is useful because you have to.
You're not going to use a digital scale, though.
Yeah, was it like an old-fashioned scale?
Yeah, it was a balance with two platforms.
Oh right, yeah, no, that's not much use. Yeah, you'd have a digital scale for weighing out your buffers and stuff.
All right, so what's your score on this genetics lab?
I'd give it a C-. I mean, you couldn't do any genetics in there, but at least you could do something.
It is a lab.
Yeah, it's not the worst lab we've seen on film.
Yeah.
You could probably fairly easily set up a teaching lab in there.
Just have to clean out all the goopy stuff in the beakers.
Yeah, get rid of the rainbow of weird liquids. And get a better janitor as well.
And don't forget to close the Sabretooth cage.
Yeah, that's
get a better
critical.
lock for that, probably.
From there, I think we cut to the campers and the impromptu karate. Did you notice you were on 1.5 speed, so you might not have noticed that the boards were very, very visibly broken before he kicked them?
Yeah, I did notice that as well.
It also kind of looked like they were plywood, which is not the kind of board that you would kick.
Well, and shouldn't need to be pre-broken. I mean, it's like...
Yeah. And then when we meet Lola, Casey is going through her backpack and discovers she's got a whole bunch of chocolate. And she says, bears love this, and she throws it into a garbage can, which is not bear safe. It's just sitting out in the open.
Yeah. But what food are they taking, right? Like, why couldn't she put her chocolate in with the rest
I don't think they took food.
food?
Yeah, like, I don't know what food you're going to take that bears aren't going to be interested in, but, like, packaged chocolate in individual wrappers, I don't think that's a problem. I always take chocolate when I go camping, right?
As long as it's sealed.
It's sealed, yeah, and then just when you go to sleep, you put it up in a tree. Like, you just put it away from your tent. That's all you do.
Yeah.
They don't, like, follow you in the woods as you're hiking to try and get your chocolate.
I think as Casey was just pissed off that this person had chocolate and wanted to get rid of it. And that's what it was.
And was a certified hottie.
Yeah. They find a track. They find a kind of paw print of the Sabretooth. The campers, or is it the trackers when they're out? But it is really, really bad because it does everything wrong for a cat track. So, I took extensive notes. Yes, here we go. So for a start, it's got 5 toes.
Right.
Which no cat has 5 toes in a print. I'm going to probably embarrass myself by thinking that most cats have, you probably know better than me at this, Kim, isn't it 4 toes at the front and 3 at the back?
Oh my god, I have so many in my house and none of them are here right now.
I can't remember, but anyway, it's no more than 4 for sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's...
They have 4 on the front and 4 on the back, but they have a 5th one that's higher up.
Yeah, that's the kind of dew claw.
Yeah, the dew claw.
Yeah. When you're trying to cut their claws because they keep scratching you, that's the hard one to get, that 5th one. It's hard to get that one.
Right. Okay. Yes. So 4...
My brother has a pretty cool inbred cat with 6 toes on its back feet.
Okay. Well, maybe the Sabretooth's inbred. But anyway, that's not the worst thing. second worst thing is that you can see claw marks in the footprint.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you can see claw marks in a footprint, it's not a cat. Cats famously have retractable claws. So when they're walking, their claws are fully kind of retracted. They don't make an imprint with their claws ever. If you see claw prints on a track, then it must be from a dog or a bear or some other kind of carnivore with non-retractable claws. I mean, even cheetahs, which have semi-retractable claws, don't leave claw marks in their footprints. So that's the second most kind of terrible example of this track mark. But the worst thing is that it's the claw mark, the footprint is plantigrade. So it has like what's the technical term? You can sort of see the heel and the kind of palm of the foot on this track mark. And cats are digitigrade, which means they walk on their tiptoes essentially. Yeah. They don't have a heel like bears do. So when you see a cat footprint, it's just the toes and the kind of foot pad. So yeah, I mean, they couldn't have got this footprint more wrong. I don't think.
It was like a cartoon one of when someone's never seen it, right?
Yeah, it's just we'll just make it like a human's but with claws. And yeah, you don't see very much of the Sabretooth in this film, which
see too much of it, I think.
Yes, it's this weird kind of paradox. You don't see very much of it, but at the same time, you see too much. Because it's a terrible, terrible CGI model.
But it's so cute.
The kind of animatronics. It
looks so cuddly. Like, it doesn't look scary at all. It looks so cuddly and fluffy.
The puppetry that they had was pretty good. The kind of models were quite good, but the CGI was like, even for 2002, it was bad.
Yeah,
really bad.
Yeah. It was even worse. Well, I think even that movie that we saw with the zombie mammoth did better because you only got glimpses of the weird zombie mammoth, right?
Yeah.
And it was mostly in the dark too. Most of this movie takes place in the daylight, which I thought was a strange choice.
Yeah.
The Sabretooth is kind of blurry the whole time, inexplicably. It's almost like they were like rubbing Vaseline on the lens to hide the strings or something.
But I mean, this is from a time before kind of Monsters, Inc., when people knew how to kind of animate fur properly in CG. So it looks like it's, a wire frame that's covered in plastic. It doesn't look at all convincing as a kind of living furred animal at all. They should have gone all in on the puppetry. I think if they'd kind of gone for a puppet version, it would have been a much better viewing experience. And there are full body Sabretooth puppets. The George C. Page Museum at Rancho La Brea in Los Angeles has a kind of full body size, life size Sabretooth. I don't know. I guess it's a Muppet rather than a puppet, except that instead of being somebody's hand inside, it's like somebody's whole body. It's like a Sabretooth bodysuit, essentially. But it looks really good.
You're saying that there are puppets in this as well, and I was like going frame by frame on some scenes because I was trying to figure out if it was a puppet in the close-ups or if it was just CGI. And I feel like I came to the conclusion that it was actually CGI, and it looks like a puppet because it's just such bad CGI. But like, there's some movements in the face on the close-ups where I can like basically see the rigging of the 3D model. Like, and if it was an animatronic puppet, like it would be a good animatronic puppet. Like its face muscles move, and I feel like that's too good of an animatronic for this movie. So I don't think there was a puppet. I think it was actually just
really
close-ups of the CGI model.
Well, why is the CGI so good in those bits and then so terrible in the kind of wide shots?
I think it looks like a puppet because the CGI is actually not very good. The animation, the rigging is really stilted, so it looks like it's moving mechanically like a puppet. But that's just because they weren't very good at doing fluid motions at this time, at least not these animators. But there's some weird things if you zoom in, like the whiskers are just too prominent. It looks like a 3D model to me. So, but maybe I'm wrong. I didn't read anything about the production. There's not a lot of information about it. So, but like I spent a lot of time looking at these close-ups. There's some of the close-ups where you see too much of the animal behind it. Like you can see its whole body in the background and the whole body sort of moves. And so at first I also thought that they were using puppets in the close-ups, but at the end I think that they're not. I think it's all CGI. But that's again why I don't know. It's inexplicable to me why in the close-ups the detail on the fur is very sharp.
Yeah.
But in all the far out scenes, the fur is just blurry. And I don't really know exactly what the deal is there.
I'm going to go on the record and contradict Josh. I've just pulled up some close-ups from the IMDb page.
Yeah, I'm looking too.
And it very much, I mean, the fur looks like, it's made. The close-up looks like a kind of, not a huge quality mannequin, but a decent one, built around a skull. The tongue looks like it's made of plastic. The teeth are correct, mostly for a skull. I think there must be a kind of close-up puppet stroke mannequin for it based on the images that I'm seeing. Because I don't think they, at that time, they would be able to animate the whiskers and the fur the way that you can see it on the photos. But who knows?
In this picture I'm looking at, it looks like a puppet.
Well, maybe we'll have to come back to this.
Yeah, I don't know. Some pictures it looks like a puppet, and some pictures it looks like digital. I can't tell. But they would have been better making it a bit more up to the imagination of the viewer.
Yeah, and they did that a little bit with the special kind of Sabretooth cam aspect when it's kind of showing things from the point of view of the Sabretooth. And it,
Like it's
like in
underwater.
Jaws. Yeah.
It was, I mean, this movie also had that same thing that we've discussed in other times with other animals, like this, where because it's a prehistoric animal, it has this insatiable bloodlust and it has to hunt humans down but one by one. Like it's not out there just trying to survive, right? It's killing everybody it can.
Yeah.
I feel like they kind of explained that and then just sort of gave up partway through. So maybe we can work out like what the actual scientific goal here was. So they're cloning a Sabretooth so that they can grow human organs. But there's something that they say right at the beginning that they almost forget about. They say, the accelerated cellular growth hormone works. So I don't think that it was so important about the Sabretooth. What was important was the cloning and the accelerated growth hormone. So by cloning a Sabretooth, basically, this is a proof of concept that they can clone a human organ. So if you need to replace an organ, they can take your own cells, clone them, grow a new organ from it, and use the accelerated cellular growth hormone to grow that organ very rapidly so that you can replace it before your organ fails. And this is all from one sentence, so maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I think this is what they were going for.
But why Sabretooth? Why ancient? Why would you go with an ancient animal if that's your goal? Why wouldn't you?
Because that makes a horror movie, right?
Yeah.
So when they're talking with Thatcher, the hunter, he's incredulous about why a lion is killing so many people. And John Rhys-Davies says something again about something about him being a hungry boy or something like that, which again, maybe I'm reading way too much into, but I think the idea is that this isn't a regular Sabretooth, this is an accelerated cellular growth hormone Sabretooth, so it's grown very rapidly and it needs to eat a lot. And that's why it's eating so much, except that there are a lot of people that it doesn't eat at all, right?
It didn't eat the blonde lady in the house.
Yeah. And it didn't eat, what's his name, Leon. It just killed him and then gave him a very meaningful look in the eye and then moved away without even taking a nibble.
Yeah, it just put a paw very gently on him, and that was enough to kill him.
Is it possible, are Sabretooth claws long enough that he can just stab you in the heart with his claws and that kills you? Because that's what happened.
No. I mean, what it could have done is Smilodon had very powerful forearms, bear sized. So potentially it could have crushed his heart and lungs by putting its pressure on. Obviously, it didn't look like that's what happened in the film because that was crappy CGI. But yeah.
It gives a close-up of the Sabretooth stabbing him in the heart with his claws, and you can see the claws. They're 2 centimeters long. They wouldn't get past the ribs.
No.
So even at 1.25 speed, it was a slow motion. It was such a slow scene. It was weird. They shared such a huge moment between them.
It's like that scene in Saving Private Ryan where the guy very slowly stabs the other guy in the chest. Did we mention that Leon dies there having a sword fight with a Sabretooth? Did you mention that?
I did not, no.
I don't know where he got these swords from. I guess they were hunting knives. They were sort of short, but they were like he's like having a saber duel with a Sabretooth, and he's sword fighting with his swords against the sabers of the Sabretooth, and it's like making sword fight shing shing sword fighting sounds.
I'm guessing that was just somebody's idea and they just really, really wanted to do it. And what does it matter? Just let them do it.
That's like the whole premise of the whole movie is like, oh, it's got sabers in its mouth. What if we had a sword fight with it? Let's make a whole movie about that.
I think one of my favorite scenes was when the truck driver stops at the gas station and he's talking to the two guys there that are kind of slow and weird, kind of caricatures. And he asks for coffee, and I forget what they say, something like, oh, but they're talking to him and they kind of annoy him. And then they're like, well, don't you want that coffee? Then he's like, no, thank you. There's obviously something in the water here. It was so funny. So harsh.
The writing is really bad, but there's a couple of good lines. Like Ross pointed out, the truth or dare line. Another one is Catherine asks John Rhys-Davies, she tells him, I thought you had a pair, Anthony. And he says, I do, and I'd like to keep them. But then the rest of the dialogue, here's the exposition at the beginning between Catherine and Anthony, John Rhys-Davies. He says, oh God, I'm going to make billions. And she says, and I'll get the Nobel Prize. He says, I'm thinking of the presidency of the United States, and you're thinking about some miserable metal? She says, you have your priorities and I have mine. And he says, oh ho, you are magnificent.
I know. And then they're about to
That's just like terrible writing. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you caught that too, because it looks like he's going in for a kiss, and it feels like John Rhys-Davies was going in for the kiss and the actress wasn't expecting it, and she's like...
Well, I thought, and then that's why he got annoyed that the evolution sucks girl showed up, right?
Okay, here's a question I have for you. So when I was, every time I'm like searching for this movie for IMDb or Wikipedia or whatever, I'm writing it Saber tooth, the American way, but it's actually spelled R-E, the Canadian or the British way. Ross, is there a preferred way to spell Sabretooth, or is it interchangeable?
Well, that's a good question. My very first published scientific paper was on DNA from Smilodon, the species in this film, and it has the title of... Oh, I can't even remember now. What was it called? Give me a second. So the title of it is Evolution of the Extinct Sabertooths and the American Cheetah-like Cat. That was my first paper. And I spelt it the British way, and there was one of the kind of reviewer comments was about this, and they wanted to spell it the other way. But we had a bit of back and forth, and I think it depends what your audience is. I think both are correct.
Journal,
so I have books on my shelf that spell it Saber, and I've got books that spell it Sabre. But more of them seem to spell it Saber. But yes, we're many countries separated by a common language, so just do it however you want.
But it's funny to me that it's an American movie, but they spell it the British way. I wonder why they did that.
Maybe Jonathan Rhys-Davies might have insisted upon
it. Are you guys fans of The Office, the American Office? There's a point where the company is bought by a company called Sabre, but they spell it the British way. And there's this joke leading up to the new managers showing up where they've been pronouncing it Sabre and they didn't realize it was pronounced Sabre.
Yeah.
The woman, the weird science woman, like, we've seen evil scientists before in these movies, right? But she just really takes the cake because she not only was she, putting science above people's lives, but she just really did not give a fuck. Like, when that woman was dying, when she found that woman's body, she wasn't even like, there was no internal like, oh no, but if I save her, then this will happen. She was like, ew, get off of me, gross, ugh, and then just walked away and didn't even think about it, right? And then she doesn't even really seem to have a plan. Like, even when she leaves him, the hero guy, with the gun that doesn't work anymore, like, what was her plan then? Like, so he's gonna die. Tiger...
and then she catches the Sabretooth by herself.
Sorry, Ross, I said tiger. The Sabretooth is still free. Like, what was her plan? Like, she just has no... I don't know. She was just, like, very shallow and empty and evil. And...
total sociopath.
Yeah, and she also was wearing a pleather jacket to go hiking in the mountains. Like, that would be the most uncomfortable thing you could possibly wear.
I love that you picked up on that. Yeah, she was a sociopath, but what was worse was her fashion.
Well, a pleather coat, that would have been really hot at the time. I had one too. I looked really good. But you wouldn't hike in it. It was not breathable. Right. It would be the
you
worst
wouldn't hike
jacket.
in, like, your Junko jeans and your global hypercolor, whatever that the guy Jason was wearing.
Yeah.
That wasn't ideal. Or your certified hottie t-shirt. That's not really ideal camping outfits.
Yes.
So you said there's nobody recognizable in this except for John Rhys-Davies, but...
Well, the weird science girl.
Who's the weird science girl?
The psychopath. She's in Weird Science.
Oh, she's in Weird Science. I don't know that. She, by the way, is doing the worst not British accent of any movie we've seen. She absolutely cannot keep her British accent from coming through. But there's others as well. So Trent Parks, is that his name? I just kept thinking, I'm Ranger Park, the park ranger. From Futurama. He's played by Josh Holloway, which is, what's the guy's name from Lost? If anybody watched that? Sawyer, yeah. And you might not have caught this one. Jason, the computer nerd guy. He is, let me see what his name is. You won't know his name, but you'll know what he's famous for.
Yeah, I saw this.
Philip Glasser. He's Fievel Mouskowitz from American Tail.
Really? Fievel!
Yeah.
Aww.
That's pretty cool.
You know, lots of the movies we watch have some reference to cave art, and this one does too, and I don't think that we have anything to say about it. When they go into the cave, they look at the wall and they say, Indian markings, they're probably hundreds of years old, and that has nothing to do with anything in the entire movie. I don't know why it was there.
Yeah.
At least they're quote-unquote Indian markings and not... the Lascaux or Chauvet style cave art, since they are in probably California here. So here's a question. When they go into the cave, Jason, Fievel, is worried about guano from the bats, because he's worried he's going to get Ebola from the guano. And I had to look this up because I didn't realize that there was supposed to be a connection between guano and Ebola. And it seems like there probably isn't, but does anybody know anything about that?
No. Did there used to be? Did they think that before?
It seems like maybe, from what I read, I was reading a lot of stuff from like bat conservationists talking about how bats are maligned in the public image. And bats are often considered like a reservoir for like one of these vectors for Ebola, but it seems like it's entirely unproven. And so, like, the idea that you'd get it from guano is, like, super tenuous, and, like, there's no documented case of anybody ever getting it from guano. Guano, of course, is bat shit. I think everybody knows that, right? This is the kind of thing I always worry about, because one of the caves I work at in Serbia is, like, a famous bat cave. It has, like, one of the largest bat populations in Serbia, and if you go, like, deeper into the cave where we're not digging, like, the floor is just gross and sticky with bat guano. And, like, I'm an anxious person. I'm, like, constantly terrified of rabies because you never know if you're going to have it. Like, you could have been exposed years ago and then suddenly you die of rabies, even though I've never touched a bat or been that close to them. So this isn't helpful for me to think that I can get Ebola from bat guano.
Well, I think you can assume that you can't.
Yeah, don't get your...
yeah, probably not.
Don't get your epidemiology knowledge from 2002 schlocky films.
Well, they did say that's never been proven. They basically stop being a wuss and come explore this guano cave with us.
Yeah.
I don't even know why they were hiking. Like, I know it's this, to toughen them up, to get them trained to the outdoors, but there didn't seem like, it seemed like there was 2 teenagers that kind of knew how to be in the wild, taking 3 teenagers that had no idea how to be in the wild on this 5-day or whatever hike through the woods with nothing, right? Like their backpacks weren't even big enough. Did they even have a first aid kit? Did they have any way of reaching anybody for help? Obviously not, because they didn't, and it was insane.
Well, I think they were training them to be guides. So these weren't like the kids themselves, but they were training them to be basically like tour guides or camp counselors, so that like next week when the actual teenagers, the younger teenagers show up, they are qualified to take them camping in the wilderness, which sounds like a great idea.
But you don't do that. Like, you don't go camping in the wilderness. There's going to be things, right? Like, there's going to be areas that they go to. It's not going to be like when they had been hiking all day already and they were like, come on, we got to get there before nightfall. It's another 4 hours. That's a long freaking hike, right?
Yeah.
And it was up mount, it wasn't an easy hike either. So it was something that you would have to be an experienced outdoorsy person to do.
It's interesting that this is also, the kind of last, no one has a cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise they could just phone for
No, they just
help.
had that satellite phone that she threw away. She's a bitch.
Yeah, there's a lot of bitches in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing stuff away. Chocolate, phones, guns, bullets.
Well, Casey or whatever her name was. The one that threw the chocolate away, she thought she was doing good. The other one she didn't care.
Yeah. Now, Lola, the certified hottie, she was nice, and the Extinction Sucks scientist wasn't in for very long before she got eaten, but she seemed normal as well. But everyone else was pretty terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the cool things about this movie is that it very easily passes the Bechdel test, which is kind of rare for us.
Yeah.
Like, roughly half the characters are women, even though they are entirely blonde. Lola is not really blonde. She just has like really prominent blonde highlights that stand out, but every other woman is blonde. But almost all the women talk to each other at some point, and it's rarely about a man. I mean, there's like sort of like 3 different romance subplots, but every woman, almost, unless they die before they meet another woman, they all talk to each other, and they're mostly talking about the Sabretooth, so that's pretty good.
It's never established what sex the Sabretooth is. And does it count as the main character?
But even that woman that died, she even said, "Help me." And the other woman was
yeah,
like, no,
exactly.
Girls, get off me. So there was a conversation.
Her role in the movie was only to have sex and then die, and she still got to talk to another woman.
Yeah. And when the guy came out with the baseball cap on his penis, and then it just fell down.
I glossed over that because I didn't need to draw attention to that.
So funny.
There were a couple of references to Raiders of the Lost Ark when they go into the cave, and Leon he decides he doesn't need a flashlight because he's going to make a torch, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I think was specific because John Rhys-Davies was in it.
Could you imagine being in Raiders and then being in this?
He's really slumming it in this film, though.
Yeah, like the two beside each other. It's crazy.
Well, this came out concurrently with Lord of the Rings. Like, what years were the Lord of the Rings movies actually coming out?
I think it was 99, 2000, 2001.
Was it?
And then this is 2002, so this is possibly the next thing after Lord of the Rings. Oh, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers was 2002, so on IMDb, Sabretooth immediately precedes Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers on John Rhys-Davies' IMDb credits. Followed by Endangered Species from 2002. He's very prolific. He's got a huge list of films on IMDb.
Why on earth did he do this movie?
Money.
Okay, so looking at this list of movies, I'm going to say he doesn't say no to anything.
Yeah.
Right? Even just look at 2020. He's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things in 2020 alone.
Well, I don't think I have anything left to say about this movie. Do
No.
either of you?
No, it didn't make me angry. It just shouldn't exist.
Yeah, it's just terrible, but not annoyingly terrible.
No.
It's a very formulaic slasher movie. Everybody has to die except for 3 people at the end. 2 men and a woman. A man and a woman have to be a romantic pair at the end. That's pretty much the formula, right?
Yeah.
You could slot in any creature into that kind of template. Sabretooth, giant alligator, giraffe.
Neanderthal man. Yep.
Yeah.
When you're looking at this on IMDb or Letterboxd or whatever website, Rotten Tomatoes, they always have like suggestions more like this. That's pretty much the suggestions you get. It's an octopus, it's a shark, it's a zombie, it's some sort of alien. It's basically that kind of movie. And they're all rated 3.0, 2.7, 4.6.
Yeah.
This one is sitting at 3.4 on IMDb.
See, me and my cousin, we like to watch those movies to laugh, right? But this one, it's not even like we would have turned it off because it's not funny enough, right? So at least, if you're going to watch something like this, then you're going to choose giant octopus versus crocodile or whatever it is, right? Croctopus versus like Megalodon or something. You're not going to choose this one.
Croctopus versus Megalodon actually sounds pretty good.
I think there is one. Or the one with the 4-headed shark, right? Like, there's other movies that you would choose. Sharknadoes, yeah. There's other movies you would choose if you're in the mood for this type of movie. They just didn't bring it enough.
How about in terms of its Halloweenness? Is it a scary movie?
I don't think so.
Only if you're terrified by bad CGI. It's probably terrifying to digital animators.
Yeah.
There's a lot of blood and gore. Right from the first scene where the janitor is killed, they dump a huge bucket of dyed corn syrup on the window of that door.
Yeah.
So it starts out strong with lots of blood.
Even, do you remember the hole in the door of that house that had the hole in the doors? Because they were like, do you think the Sabretooth is in there? And it was like, had blood all around the hole. Like the Sabretooth has gone through this hole, made this hole. It was, very silly. No, I think the scariest movie we've watched for this podcast is that the one that Ross missed, the cave.
The Descent.
The Descent.
Yeah, that was scary.
Well, we'll see if we can find some scarier ones for the rest of October. Cool.
A Neanderthal ghost.
If you've been enjoying Screens of the Stone Age, get in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at SOTSA_podcast and on Facebook at SOTSA podcast, or send us an email to screensofthestonage@gmail.com. Screens of the Stone Age is supported by the Paleoanthropological Society of Canada. Find out more at pasc-scpa.ca. Okay, that's probably good enough there.
That's the same approach that I think the filmmakers took.
Yeah.
I think you've made that joke before.
Probably.
It holds up.